everyone, you're watching Bite Me with me, Nicole, and Gigi in the back over there if you can see him. And today we're going to be doing one of our favorite Spanish tapas recipes. Now tapas are pretty much these small little plates of food that people share, while they're drinking and mingling and talking, and it's just such a wonderfully exciting way to have a meal, okay? And today we're going to be doing Gambas al Ajillo, which is pretty much Spanish garlic prawns, but because it's a Bite Me with Nicole episode, we're going to make it slightly fancier and add some chorizo in here, okay? Now this is beautifully spicy and picante and paprika-y, and it's just so good. Like, if you have never had the Spanish chorizo, I suggest you go out and buy some today, okay? So this is a screamingly simple recipe. I've never done this in the past seasons because I always thought it was too simple a recipe, but then I had some guests over and I made this for them and they would not stop talking about it. So I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this recipe and I should share it with all of you as well. Okay, so it's really simple to do. You just need to get a few ingredients together and prep your prawns the night before. In fact, what I've done with my prawns is really simple. I've prepped them and I've kept the shell on. If you don't keep the shell on, don't keep the shell on. It's actually easier eating without the shell on. But I like keeping the shell on because then you're going to sit and put your fingers into it and eat it really exotically and sensually. So I like doing that. But if you don't want to, you don't have to do that. So to the prawns with the shell on, but I have deveined them. I've added some paprika and some olive oil, and then I just cling film it all and put it into the fridge, after mixing it, so that all the flavors mingle together and it's gonna taste amazing the next day. So we're gonna start, and what we're gonna start with is obviously our chorizo. Okay, now chorizo is a wonderfully cured sausage, if you will, and it's made of pork obviously, and pork fat, belly fat to be specific, and it smells smoky and delicious, and someone is sneezing in the back. And that is Catchy sitting on one of the low crusaders. But yes, this is what happens in our kitchen. We have everyone come to help, pretty much to eat actually, okay? Because they can smell the pork and the butter. They're quite deviant that way. So we're going to start with the chorizo, like I said. And what I've done is, I've taken my chorizo, which comes like this. It's a whole sausage, and I've cut it up. And then what I do is I pull off the outer skin, okay? Because I don't want that in my final dish. Okay, so once you cut it in half and then cut it in quarters, you will see the skin, it will come off really easily, and just pull it off. And I do store this in the fridge because in Dubai it can be quite humid and then it tends to grow some fungus after some time, so you do want to put this in the fridge. Save your chorizo, look after it very well because it is so precious. Okay, now over here is a very large pan because this is quite a large serving. Okay, so in your very big pan, what you're going to do is add just some olive oil first, and I am going to use extra virgin olive oil for this, just a little bit, because this dish does not involve super high heat. Okay, so I'm not going to break down the flavor of the extra virgin olive oil. It's going to stay intact because it's going to cook on a very smooth, slow heat. Just a little in the start because I just want to get the oils out of the chorizo pieces. Gigi, what are you contemplating over there? Gigi can smell pork and Gigi can smell butter, so Gigi is here. So what we're doing now is just looking to get the oils out of the chorizo. So you do want it to be fairly hot, just for this part. And I'm going to pop all of the chorizo. The oil is going to turn super red now, and that's because of the paprika and the other wonderful spices in the chorizo. Now lower your flame to about a medium first, and then you're going to go all the way down. This is going to start smoking really quickly because of the fat that's going to come out of the chorizo. The delicious, yummy fat. Normally, gambas al ajillo are just cooked with garlic and olive oil and paprika. But this brings two of my favorite ingredients together. Actually, four of my favorite ingredients. 5 of my favorite ingredients together. Prawns, chorizo, garlic, butter. I've forgotten what the 5th one is. Paprika. There you go. Okay, now bring it all the way low and just kind of put your chorizo in one even layer and let it slowly just crisp up. While this is happening, I'm going to get my garlic ready. Okay. And like all good dishes and like all good chefs, I have an excess of garlic over here. These are 6 cloves of garlic and they're huge cloves. Look, the big huge cloves. So just keep an eye on your chorizo, but begin grating here garlic. You can dice it really fine if you want, but I like doing this because it will just melt away then. So this dish doesn't take that long to come together, obviously, because the prawns cook so quickly and so does the chorizo. And there's no sort of base of onions or anything that you need for this. So the last time I'm going to stir it and put in a single layer. Some pieces will get super crispy and they're delicious. The main point of this is to get that amazing chorizo oil out. You want it to flavor the prawns and flavor the butter that's going to go in this dish as well. All in all, this is a win-win, pretty much for my stomach. Now I'm just going to get my chorizo out. So with a slotted spoon, I'm going to drain as much of the oil as I can and just put the chorizo back into the bowl. Turn your flame off. Do you see how it's almost double the amount of oil now that came out of the chorizo? You have that beautiful color going through. Next, we're going to add our butter. So on the flame, which has been turned off, because the oil is still hot, I'm going to add my butter, and this is unsalted butter. And because there's already oil in there, even though I'm going to add more, this is going to make sure that the butter doesn't burn. Okay, so it's just very gradually going to melt. Now set your flame back on. Now you may shudder at using this much of butter and oil, but this dish is meant to be eaten with like crusty bread. You get your bread and you dip it into that lovely buttery sauce, which is going to be flavored with the prawn shell and the prawn itself, and it is heavenly to say the least. And also when you do tapas, I mean, you'll have people eating other stuff as well. So you know what tends to happen is if you have cheese and bread just lying around, people end up dipping it into this beautiful butteriness that is left behind, and everybody is happy and everyone is high, so it's all good. At no point do you want things to like super fry in there, okay? Now I'm going to add my garlic in. And because the butter is going to heat up really quickly, keep an eye on it. Make sure to stir. So about 1 teaspoon of dried parsley. You could also use fresh parsley. I like using dried for this stage. Also another little thing that I like to do is add some saffron in here because it is Spanish after all, okay? If you don't have saffron, don't worry. Go ahead and make this, it's still delicious. But if you do add the saffron, and just a tiny pinch, okay? It's going to add this really subtle flavor at the back that is so exotic that people don't know what it is, but they love it. And what's going to happen is as soon as it hits the hot oil and you start stirring, it's going to start leaving out its flavor and the color as well. Also at this point, I'm going to put a little salt. Actually, that was quite a lot of salt, a nice pinch of salt because I have a lot of prawns to flavor. I'm going to add a little bit more oil, about 1/4 cup. You could just add more butter if you want, but this kind of helps lighten it and also make sure that the butter doesn't overheat too quickly. Okay, so give it back to a medium flame just so it kind of comes up a little bit because I'm going to add my prawns now. And these are my beautiful, spectacular king prawns. Look at them. And because of the paprika, which is already in here, they're all lovely and red. So essentially, we're going to very gently poach the prawns in the butter and the oil. Make sure you get a big enough pan. And this is just the remaining oil and paprika. And I'm going to use a spoon to just spoon over the fat. In this case, the butter and the oil, obviously, and the lovely oils that have come out of the chorizo. And see, this is why I like adding the shell because they get so beautifully red and it just looks spectacular on a plate. In fact, the prawn shell does obviously add more flavor to the butter and the oil. Bring your flame down low again. You gotta just watch it. So if it starts to be very still, the oil and the butter, then you whack up the heat a little bit, okay? You can gently start flipping them so that you get the heat to distribute more evenly. Also, what you're doing every time you're spooning it over is you're applying heat to the top of the prawn as well, and that's going to help it cook. When you cook the prawns so delicately and so gently, what happens is they get super plump and super juicy and they don't lose any of the moisture that's in them, alright? That's why we're doing it on a very slow flame. Most prawns, once they're almost done cooking, will start curling up like this and the flesh will become translucent and they'll be firm to touch, alright? So if you've never cooked prawns before, don't worry, this is really simple. And if you mess it up the first time, you will remember the second time. That's just the way cooking works. So don't be afraid of trying something new. because you really, it takes a lot to mess up the flavor of a prawn. So I know my prawns are done because they're all firm to the touch, and they're also mostly curled, and their beautiful shells have turned lovely and red. So I'm going to turn my flame off. You want to make sure you get your prawns right before they're completely cooked, and then turn your flame off, because the rest of the residual heat will cook them through. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to serve this in a few seconds. I'm going to just clear up some of this, and we're going to get some bread ready, and we're just going to feast on this as soon as we are done. Just before serving, I've added some fresh parsley, and I've just cut it really fine and sprinkled it all over. And now I'm going to add my chorizo back in. And if you can serve it in the exact same pan that you've cooked it in, it's going to taste even better. Honestly, if you do not eat pork, you can make this without the chorizo as well. You will miss one very massive flavor profile, but it is still extremely tasty. Okay. Also, if you like things slightly more picante and hot, add a few chili flakes. Make sure you taste the buttery oil actually for salt before you serve this, because it may need another whack of salt. Okay, and then just kind of mix things gently, as gracefully as possible. People are always surprised to like find the chorizo with the prawns, because normally prawns by themselves are such a decadent dish, and then you have things like saffron and paprika and the butter, and I mean, this is why people like to come and eat here, because things are so decadent. A little more parsley, just to make it look nice, and the bitterness of the parsley works really well with the sweetness of the prawn, so you do want that. And next you have some lemon, and you do want to squeeze some lemon, because what's going to happen is the lemon is going to cut through the fattiness of that butter. Okay, so guys, time for me to try, because I have been very nice and very patient, very well behaved. And just some crusty bread, and I'm just going to try the oil, maybe one piece of chorizo, because eating that prawn is a private affair with just me and my hands later on. Oh man. Honestly, if there were two of me, I would marry me. So good. So smoky, so Spanishy, so tapa-y, so damn delicious. There's no other way to describe this. This is fantastic with the chorizo and the prawns, and they're just such a heavenly combination. I hope you guys try this for when you have guests over for a tapas night, or when you're having like a games night and you want nibbles out there. This is a fantastically easy and sublime dish to have at your dinner party. It is so good. It's so well balanced with everything. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, please share and subscribe. We would love to know what you think, and we really hope you try out our wonderful Gambas al Ajillo with chorizo. Can you see I'm getting breathless talking about it, because I just want to put more food into my mouth. This is, I understand why guests like this so much. This is fantastic. Simple to me, but quite complex to the eater.